What I'm going to talk about today could genuinely be the difference between you crossing that line and feeling ecstatic with your results and crossing it and feeling disappointed because you left so much on the table. But before we get into that, I'm Christian Hill, the founder of Ready for Anything. Over the last 3 years, I've helped clients compete in over 300 plus events, and we're going to really dive into this today. And that's ranging all the way from someone's first 10K all the way to a full distance Ironman. So please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And this brings me to my first point. Failure is inevitable. You need to understand, guys, with training like this, there is a maturity level to it as well. And where a lot of people go wrong is because they've been going to the gym, doing fitness or looking after themselves for an extended period of time. Maybe they've even been doing it for like 10 plus years, but this is their first event and they forget that this is new to them. And there's so many things that you're just not used to. It's not just about following a plan and turning up in the day and doing it. There is so many variables, so many things that can go wrong. Here's just a list off the top of my head. It could literally be catastrophic injury that means you have to pull out of the race right before it or during the race, even worse. Poor race day nutrition, total burnout due to poor recovery management, poor mindset management that ruins your confidence. Guys, like, you will learn so much about yourself and it will expose so many weaknesses. And so many folk think it's just a case of doing the thing. And then lastly, just realizing that you bit off way more than you can actually chew. This is so common and there's nothing wrong with that. And what you need to realize is it's part of it. We recently had a client that's taking on a huge event right now. At the point of the release, they might have actually done it by now, but it's a mega cycle, like 200 miles of cycling. It's insane, right? And one of the things they actually said, for their lifestyle, for their commitments, for their family commitments, their work commitments, they're like, this is actually just a bit too much for me. I've not enjoyed it, but I probably won't do something this size again. That's just a lesson, guys. And what you need to understand is that when you go through and you train like this and you start to compete, you start to take on challenges, is that you need to be extracting the lessons. You need to be coming away and being like, right, how can I actually be better from this? How can I avoid this happening again? What can I actually learn about myself in this whole process? I recently spoke to a client about how in 2020, I invested in a course that was like £547. I think that's how much it was. And it wasn't even relevant to me. I kind of got sold it. I bought it. I paid for it. There was no one there to speak to me. It was an entire course and it wasn't even relevant because the one thing that I actually was meant to have, I didn't actually have. And I felt like I wasted £547, but I actually look back at that now and it was a huge unlock for me because it was like, I paid someone £547 for something that I didn't even meet anyone. And I was like, I am delivering so much in my service. I'm massively undercharging and over delivering. And what that done for me was just it taught me a lesson. And that's what everyone needs to do in this. Like, if you got an injury during a preparation, ask yourself why. If I look back at the start of this year when I got a stress fracture in my leg, I was training in the heat. I was doing the most mileage I ever had. And I was actually losing quite a good amount of fat. I was absolutely shredded to the bone. I'm actually close to that right now again. But looking back at that point, me getting a little bit leaner, me actually pushing that little bit further was probably the straw that broke the camel's back that kind of took me a bridge too far. I'm not saying there was anything wrong with it, but I'm able to look back at that situation going, yeah, that's probably why that happened. So that going forward, I can learn from it, improve from it, and be a far greater athlete when it comes to my next event or the next challenge so that it doesn't happen again. And so that I'm able to manage it and get way ahead of the curve. And people just don't do this. They're so defeatist when something happens and they don't actually extract the lessons. So believe it or not, this is all part of the game, guys. And it's something that you really need to understand when you start to compete, push, chase down events, and really just take things to a whole new level. But I need you to focus on these 3 things to become a student of the game. A, humor the fact that you're new to this and humor the fact that there's more factors than training, recovery, sleep, nutrition, electrolytes, sodium, like all these things. I'm not trying to stress you or overwhelm you, but humor the fact that you are new to this. Humor the fact that this is maybe the first, second, or third time you're doing it. And you might have done some other different events, but guys, like, not all events are the exact same. Just because you ran a 10K, a marathon, doesn't mean that you're going to be going into a high rocks training equipped, knowing what you're doing. You need to become a student of the game and humor the fact that you're new to this and there's going to be a lot of things that you do not know, and that's okay. B, you need to spend more time with experienced people who you can train with and learn from. It doesn't have to be all the time, just a little bit of exposure. Some of the best learnings I've had haven't been through what someone's taught me. It's just been observing through other people's actions, how they hold themselves, how they carry themselves, and even just the way that they're looking at a situation that I look at it. And it just gives me an entirely different perspective that allows me to overcome a limiting belief that I have about that. I always remember a track session that I'd done, I think it was the end of last year. I'd done it with, shout out to the boys at Always Ready. And it just kind of opened up my eyes to like the next standard for me when it came to my running on the track. And it wasn't even anything in particular they said. It was just the way that they were handling the session, the way they were talking about it, their vision with it. And that just taught me so much. We get this a lot when people come on our retreats. They always come away from the retreat and feel like they want to run through a wall because they've been exposed to people doing things better than they can, different ways to they are living different lives, and they can extract something from that. So you need to be around more people who are better than you that are going to expose you to things that you just do not know because you don't know what you don't know. And then lastly, know your numbers, log and track data, and debrief any significant events. One thing that we get all clients to do after a big event is we get them to do a race debrief and essentially go over the full day, how it went down, how it felt, because a lot of people just don't do this. And then it's very, very emotionally driven. I see that if you gave me £1 for every man that I've spoke to who talks like they were an athlete when they were like 18 years old. They weren't an athlete when they were 18 years old. They were fit and they were just a bit more consistent than what we are. So we either do two things. We play it down or we massively romanticize the idea of where we were. Whereas if you do a race debrief right after the event, 24 hours, 40 hours, once the dust is settled and you're clear, you can go back and look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's how that actually went down, because we're so good at convincing ourselves that things didn't actually go down the way they went down. So log the data, know your numbers, and actually debrief significant things that you can actually learn from. So when you go back and do them again, it's there in writing and it's not emotionally driven. This is a biggie, and it's one that so many folk completely overlook. You need to plan your life in a way that accommodates everything that you're doing. Now, when I talk about this, it's going to come down to the individual. It's going to come down to their ability, their commitment, and what type of result they want. But you need to be thinking about pre-race, race, post-race. Not just, where's my plan? What does that look like? Here's my shifts. You need to be thinking about the commitment. You need to be thinking about things that you're going to have to say no to, things that you're going to have to say yes to, things that you're going to have to commit to, because there's going to be a lot of weekends that you're going to have to do sessions, runs, long bike rides, whatever it is that you're doing that you really don't want to do. You're going to have friends and family not doing it. You're going to have more things that are quite tantalizing, that there's going to come a point where when you come out of that honeymoon phase, when the dust settles after a few weeks into the program, you're going to start to get to the point where you don't want to do things. And if you have not planned this strategically and really thought this out, I've been there before, you're going to end up slacking. You're going to end up cutting slack. Like, I've seen it with clients where they book things that are just so contradictory and they don't really think about it. I've had clients on long-term travel who are training for big events, but then they've not really thought it through. But this is all part of the learning again, guys, where they get to the place and they're kind of in this like, sort of party mindset and they're with other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they then start to get distracted. Like, you need to be locked in. You need to be obsessed. And you need to engineer your life in a way that this massively complements everything you're trying to achieve. Now, this isn't going to be the same for everyone, but if you've got a family, if you've got dogs, if you've got huge work commitments, you need to speak to those people. You need to make people aware of what you're doing, because if you don't, everyone's just, no, like, you need to understand, guys, like, no one can just get in your head and just assume. You can't just assume that everyone knows what you're doing. You have to make other people aware of that. So there's a few things that like you could be thinking about here. That could be genuinely like a stint of sobriety, limiting your social calendar for a certain period of time, managing your workload around that time, or just making your loved ones aware of what you're doing. This is absolutely massive. The effort that you put into anything will dictate the outcome that you get. So again, guys, I'm trying to get you to look beyond this. It's not just about the training. It's about how much you focus this on other parts of your life, and those who put in more effort just get way more back. But here's some actual specifics that you can actually put in place that are going to make life so much easier and get the most out of your next event that you're training for. Have a planned deload or break that's strategic. If you've just spent the last 3 months doing a marathon prep, a triathlon prep, a high rocks prep, unless you're a competitive athlete, you're going to be very, very fatigued because you're not going to be used to that. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about mentally. This becomes your personality, guys. This becomes your only thought. And when you're at the tail end of it, depending on how much you've committed to this, you're going to want a break from it. So I'm not saying that we just get to that point and then just literally kick everything away, kick our legs away from underneath us and give up. But what I'm saying is, like, maybe actually factor in a holiday after it. Maybe factor in a bit of a break. Maybe factor in some effort and energy into an area that you feel like it's been neglected, more time with the kids, more time with the family, whatever that is, and then really be smart with it. That might be as well. You have a big project at work that you're going to actually push back a couple of months because this is really important to you right now. And again, this exploration and this curious mindset is going to allow you to actually be in a much better spot than someone that's just trying to force a square peg into a circle hole. Because this is what loads of folk do. It's why they have bad experiences doing it. They don't really think everything out. Secondly, you need to have a minimal effective dosage set up during this off season or this break that you're taking. So as I said, this is a mistake I made in the past where I went back into a new block of training and I felt like I was starting from scratch. Have a minimal effective dosage. You might not even want to actually have a plan in times like this, or really just reduce it and have a lot of flexibility so that you can actually play about with it and have a bit of fun. I'm not saying that you didn't enjoy or have fun in the prep, but when you've been through a really, really disciplined phase like this, it is important for that psychological deload. So make sure that you've got a minimal effective dosage in place so that you can still make the boat go faster, because the mistake so many folk make between event preps, between goals, between challenges, is that they just take the foot off the gas and they feel like they lose so much progress. And it's so disheartening when you go back to your next training block. And then lastly, knowing your season of no's. So there is going to come a point, guys, where you have to embody a level of discipline that you have never had to embody before. Discipline, the best way to describe it, in my opinion, is the ability to say no to things that you really want to say yes to. And that's when you have to really think about when the seasons of no's is. That's when you need to be thinking about, is it actually going to be a good time for me to do a stand-up sobriety, like I mentioned already? Is it going to be a good time for me to actually just really, really quiet down my social calendar? Now, people confuse this. Like, if you're going through like a bit of a body transformation and you're just trying to live a bit better, that's like level 1. We're on like level 9, level 10 here, where we're trying to get the most out of our performance. I'm not saying that doing these things is good, bad, right, or wrong, but is it a wise idea to plan in 3 big baby sessions and a long weekend away in the last 2 months of your event prep? It's probably not. And if you are going to do these things, challenge yourself and go to them sober. Go to these things and actually just behave like a different person. Train like you always would if you weren't doing them. Like, use this as an opportunity to really evolve yourself as a person. And this is the last point. Take yourself more seriously. Serious people get serious results. You need to flick the switch in your mind, guys. I see so many folk downplaying what they're doing now. It's important to stay humble, but there's a difference between staying humble and actually not really showing yourself some compassion. I've spoke to people that are doing incredible things and I'm like, what are you up to right now? I'm training for a marathon. I'm going for this goal. I'm doing this. I'm like, that's incredible. I'm like, oh, it's not actually that much. And it's like, it is important to be like this and actually embrace a level of humility. But at the same time, if you're always downplaying what you're doing, what that will eventually do is come back and bite you in the arse, because you start to think it's not actually that important. Now, I'm not saying that you need to pump the brakes on and be like, by the way, do you know what I'm doing? But you need to take yourself seriously. You need to go through a paradigm shift where you're actually starting to be like, no, what are my goals here? Who do I need to be for these? What are the things that I am accepting and what are the things that I am not accepting? How am I speaking to myself right now? How am I articulating myself to other people when people are asking me about what I'm chasing after, what I'm doing? As I said, serious people get serious results. You can still be silly, you can still be daft, but you know the difference when you're talking to someone, you're like, whoa, this person's on one right now. This person's getting after it. And it's very inspiring, guys. And the conversation I had with a client recently was like, when you're going for this kind of shift, there's 3, I've spoken about this so many times in the podcast. There's 3 things that influence your identity: how you speak to yourself, your actions, and other people's idea of you. If you do not speak in a way that people do not take you serious for what you're doing, they would take you serious either. And there'll come a point, guys, where you're maybe having a bit of a rough patch, and maybe just like your motivation is gone. You're really questioning what you're doing. And if you get to that point and if you've not actually created like a bit of authority around what you're trying to achieve, people will question it. Now, they won't be doing it for, they might do, but like, they won't be doing it from a place of like trying to put you down. They'll be doing it from a place because they're just operating with the idea of who you are based on how you're articulating yourself. So remember, guys, like, make sure that you're really, really like taking this serious, going up a gear and thinking about who you need to be, what you need to be doing. When I done the Countman back in 2023, I went for that preparation and it was like, I'm going up a gear. And all the way up until that, I done a cold plunge every single morning, because to me, it was like, I need to almost toughen myself up even more. And I need to like make people aware that like, I'm getting up, I'm getting after it, I'm crushing it, I'm doing double days training, I'm training 3 hours a day, I'm doing cold plunges in the morning. And people start to be like, well, this guy doesn't actually mess about. And it's not like a bravado thing. It's just like you're stating like, yeah, I'm taking this very seriously. And folk will become very, very aware of that as well. So it's so, so important. And as I mentioned already, guys, there's going to come a point where you question everything about what you're doing. You're going to lose sight. And this is why visualization and really starting to think through the day of the event, crossing the line is so, so important. When I was doing my first ever Ironman, I couldn't even swim when I signed up for it. There was so many points where it seemed so unimaginable. And me actually just thinking through the day, visualizing it, thinking about what that would feel like was something at times that actually made me feel quite emotional because it was such a big goal of mine for a long period of time. So when I lost sight, that visualization, and it was important as well in really, really long sessions as well to be in a headspace and really, really embody a good level of self-talk. And that's the first time I've really started speaking to myself out loud, and it works. It really, really does. And then just to tie into that last point of flicking the switch and taking yourself more seriously, observe what other athletes do that you look up to. You don't have to copy exactly what they do, but really look at the way that they live. If you watch them on YouTube, if you follow people on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, observe how they live, what they do. As I mentioned already, like spending time with more experienced people is going to expose this, but the beauty of having social media now is that we can actually peer into other people's lives. Copy tactics, don't copy techniques. You don't have to eat with the Rock eats. You don't have to do the same training split as Hunter McIntyre does. So like make sure that you're just looking at the way they articulate themselves, how they're speaking, and how can you take that into your own life. Anyway, guys, what I've actually dropped in the link below is a copy of the high performance plan. The high performance plan is everything that we take a client through when they come into the program from a lifestyle standpoint. So setting up your routines, your habits, your behaviors, and giving you an unfair advantage over the version of you who is not doing this. So it's free. Hit the link below, drop your email in, and you get a copy of it come through to you immediately. But apart from that, guys, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and I hope you took a lot away from this. See you later. Goodbye.